Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you found us. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. Between those two, I would have to say those are where the lion's share of the listens come through on demand. That's like 10-1. Tonight we are live. This is January 31st, which is a Sunday. Typically, we don't go live on Sunday, but this topic lends itself to Monday morning with a lot of relevance. And we're going to talk about what happened on the stock market last week. And with me as a co-host, he's often here. He's here tonight, Jack Casey. What's going on, Jack?
Not much, man. Just got back from Pittsburgh. Anyone out there watching live, you plan on driving tonight, be extra safe because those roads are getting kind of heinous. But it wasn't too bad. It was just when I hit the Ohio border, ironically, that it all started getting kind of bad. I was like, oh, I'm coming back from a little vacation. It has to do this to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. In this region of the world, you never know when those things are going to happen. Anyway, as I mentioned, we're live. We're live on YouTube and we are live on Facebook. And this is a first. I've gone live on LinkedIn before, but I've never actually done the podcast on LinkedIn Live. So I'm doing that tonight as well. Relevant very much to the business community. I don't. This is going to be my disclaimer, and I'll speak for myself here. I don't know that much about the stock market, and I probably should. In researching what happened last week, I learned some things about trading and hedge funds and all of these other things. But I'll be the first to tell you that I am learning as the audience is in a lot of cases, because this was in the news so much last week. I'm learning, and there's a lot of nuance to this. There's a lot of layers that I may not know. And of course, there's a lot of subjectivity. I'm sure professional people who do the stock market might have a different opinion or a different take on what happened last week, and that's fine. Jack, I'm going to bring you in on this because I know you're very much up on current events, and this involves a GameStop, although this isn't really about gaming or GameStop itself. Let me just give the audience kind of a brief overview. Last week, there was GameStop and a couple of others. AMC and a number of other stocks were at play here, but this was really about GameStop.
It was GameStop and AMC were the two main ones.
Yes. Okay. And this was a stock that was on the stock market being traded. This also involves an app called Robinhood. Okay. And the name implies, what Robinhood stands for. The name implies that you're giving a voice, or not necessarily a voice, but you're giving, like the rich to the poor. It's kind of like giving the little guy a chance to participate. That's what the implication of the name tells me anyway. Okay. If I was a marketing person, which I am, but not for this company, I would say, yeah, Robinhood has a nice implication for, the little guy who wants to try something at stock. Okay.
As far as I know, that's how they advertise themselves too.
Okay. And this also involves a social media platform called Reddit. All right. So there's a lot of elements here that a lot of people couldn't join normally. You have a social media platform, you have stock, and there's a lot of things here that a lot of people may not have a full grasp of entirely. And all these pieces are coming together in a way that's kind of unique. Essentially, what happened last week in a nutshell is the stock for GameStop was put out there. And I believe it's important to understand that no matter how this goes, GameStop is still a company that's in trouble. Okay. This is more about manipulation of stock and stock value, which doesn't always necessarily relate to how well the company is doing as far as a company goes.
No, stock value is almost never an indicator for that.
Right. And GameStop is kind of, and you would know certainly more about this than I do, because I've never been into gaming. I was never, I'm of the age, I was on the ground floor when gaming exploded. I remember the first home video games. I remember the popularity of arcades. All my friends couldn't get enough of them. I never caught that bug.
I've been
And,
playing video games since I was 3 years old, and I'm
yeah, I
currently
know.
35. So
And I never followed all the different games, all the different brands, Xbox and Sony and all the I just never really had a passion for that. People are surprised when they find that out, because I am an electronics guy. I do enjoy, computers and things like that, but I just never, the bug to play games just never bit me for whatever reason. With that being said, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, GameStop is very much in the same position that Blockbuster Video was a number of years ago, in that you had, software DVDs being rented and brought back and all this, and that's kind of where the money came from. And of course, they sold DVDs and all these other things. And as online streaming started to emerge, Blockbuster never really translated what was happening in the marketplace into their business model.
Blockbuster
And
kind of made the same mistake that Sears did.
yeah.
Like back in the day, the Sears catalog was like the end all, like
Oh
over the
yeah, it was
mail
a Bible.
shopping. And
Oh
if they wouldn't
sure.
have done such, there's so much corporate infighting around the time that Amazon started to rise. Like they would be the Amazon right now. Like there's no
Yep.
question. They already had the
Especially for
infrastructure in
tools.
place. Yeah,
Yeah.
they refuse to adapt.
Yeah.
Which is something GameStop has been doing now.
Exactly. And I know there's the legend has it that Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix and they passed on it. I'm not sure that had they bought it, what people don't forget is Netflix would not be Netflix if it had been purchased back then. It probably just would have been absorbed, and it might have never gone anywhere. So you can't really say, well, if they would have bought it, they'd be sitting happy right now, because I'm not sure they would have developed it the same way that it went. But that's another story. What I'm trying to get at here is that GameStop was very much cartridges, games. They were great for plugs and accessories. There's a few times when I needed special plugs, adapters, and things like that for what I was doing. They were great for stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you have an online gaming community, and you're having that digital shift now. You don't necessarily need to buy a box to play a game. Okay. And is that a fair assessment of what's happening? And you've been buying games for years, so you would know better than I.
I will say that the reason that gaming took longer to go digital than say movies and stuff like that is mostly like file sizes. Like
Yes.
in a lot of areas, like the typical video game nowadays, like well, the original ones were say 8 bits, 16 bits. Like the original Mario games fit on like a 256 like kilobyte disc.
Hmm.
That's what a cartridge would be. Nowadays, you have games where one of the ones I bought a couple of years ago was a cowboy game called Red Dead Redemption 2, and just the files alone that you needed to install on the PlayStation 4 were over 100 gigs.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people don't have great internet. I'm being one
Exactly.
of them, and so up until recently, when higher speed internet has been ramping up more and more, it was actually just a lot easier to just go buy the car or the disc and then download the updates as they went. Because rather than say 70 gigs, the updates would be maybe a gig or two, and they wouldn't take too long.
Right.
But now that we have like fiber and more people are getting better internet, a lot of company or games are switching over to digital. I mean, in a lot of cases, you can still buy the physical copies, which is what I generally do because I'm a collector.
Yeah.
But also another thing too is that GameStop is kind of suffering as well now because a lot of game developers and companies and all that are pushing to do digital only, because that way you can't sell the game back. One of GameStop's biggest things was they were one of the bigger resellers for used video games.
Sure.
And there's a joke that goes around like traded in my 20 games that I had, they gave me 17 cents, which sometimes wasn't far off. But and I mean, you can kind of see that indicated too, because like the PlayStation 5, which was just released in November, has two versions. There's a disc drive version and an online version.
Okay.
And the disc drive version is $100 more. But if you're someone like me with crappy internet, like you're not gonna want to buy a game and then wait like a week for it to download.
Yes,
You want to
sure.
play it like right then. So GameStop's also made a few other missteps. They've kind of converted a lot of their stock over to like toys and stuff like that. Like if you walk into a store now, as opposed to like 5 years ago, like 5 years ago it was mostly video games, like shelf after shelf of them. Now they have like the Funko Pops, and they've got like figurines and all this other stuff, which is not going to be as lucrative as dealing in games in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's why GameStop as a company has been slowly declining. And then when COVID hit and people couldn't physically go shop at their stores anymore, even though they'd put up a fight about it, I think that is what started causing a lot of the store closings. I know 2 of the stores around here have closed, and I think they've lost like 400 to 600 stores in the last 8 months, if I'm right.
Okay. I'm sure it's dropping off. There's no question. Yeah.
So GameStop as a company has not been doing well for a long time, and they've been trying to do different things to rebound, but that's also not necessarily important as to what happened. GameStop, the whole thing started in you know how Reddit works, right?
In a nutshell, yes. But if you want to elaborate on it, please do, because I have not. That and Pinterest are 2 things that I have not spent a lot of time on that I probably should.
Pinterest I've never done. Reddit I spend way too much time on.
Okay.
The way Reddit works is you have a main site, and it's like one of the most visited sites in the entire world, where users submit, say, pictures, news articles, videos, stuff like that, and then each Reddit or each subreddit, which is like a smaller community, say there's one for videos, there's one for like cats, there's one for literally anything that you can name. I mean, if you can find one that I'd never thought of or that no one's ever thought of, then you should go buy a lottery ticket.
Okay.
So there's a subreddit out there, and it's called Wall Street Bets.
Correct.
And what it is a bunch of it's got over, I think it exploded. I think there's over 5-6 million members now. Last time I checked, it could be higher than that. But it was pretty much like amateur stock traders. And of course, I'm sure there were some professionals mixed in there, because as is like every other subreddit, such as like the science ones, you have like real scientists who will come in and comment on stuff, answer questions. Well, the way it started was someone on Wall Street Bets noticed that one of the major hedge funds had essentially decided to short a stock, and up to, I believe, it was 140%, which meant that they were trying to sell more stocks than are in circulation. And like Billy, I am not a financial guy. This is all based off of what I understand.
Right. And just to let me elaborate on that point, and then I'll let you move on.
Oh, you're good.
The short sell in essence is a bet against the company.
Yes.
Okay. And that doesn't necessarily mean something as bad as it sounds. It's not like you want them to fail. But if you're playing the stock market, you have to realize what stocks are doing well, which ones aren't, which companies are, which aren't, and so on. And what you basically do is you take shares of a company that you feel are going to drop. Okay. You feel that there's blood in the water. Okay. Just like, the barracuda and everything start coming. There's blood in the water. All right. And you borrow these stocks, and the borrowing implies that you're going to have to pay them back, which is where the danger in short selling is, because you can short sell them. They devalue whatever, and then you buy them back for pennies on the dollar and return them. Now, this normally is something that hedge funds do with a fair amount of success. And so far, the way the law is, there's nothing illegal about this. As a matter of fact, it's a process called price discovery. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the, from what I've here again, in researching this as a novice, this isn't always a bad thing, because what it does is sometimes it uncovers bad actors in this whole process. It kind of uncovers the people that really don't need to be there. Okay. Well, a bunch of hedge fund managers decided that, GameStop is a good way to capitalize on this process. And they started short selling. And that's kind of where the Reddit comes in, because this is the first time that I am aware of, especially on a large scale, that a social media platform gathered their forces and said, "Hey, there's something going on here with this GameStop."
And
Okay,
GameStop was a very bad choice too, because a lot of people on Reddit are gamers, and it's become kind
that's
of a
kind of what I was
meme.
going to get at.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nerds are
So,
there.
yep, I'm one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened then is you have a community that, in essence, are making up this group of people that decided, you know what, we should go out there and buy these stocks.
Mhm.
And what happens then when people start buying is the value goes up. And now you have these hedge fund
Yes.
in groups that they got these stocks hanging out there that they have to return. And instead of making money on them, I heard some ridiculous things that, in the last week or two, some of these shares were down to dollars. And at the height of this crisis, they were like 300. So,
Yeah. Over 2
depending.
weeks, GameStop went from $3 to like 350.
Okay.
It was like slowly at first, and then it was a sharp spike when it became a meme, and everybody was like, "All right, buy GameStop."
Right. So what you ended up with was these fat cat hedge fund guys who normally make a killing at this, losing their rear end. Okay, because these chips, as you might say, are coming due. You have to turn these in, and you have to account for them. And let me just finish this point, and then I'm going to let you talk about this, because you followed the gaming thing and the Reddit thing a lot more than I have. But what really caused the stir, and I'll tell you, when AOC and Ted Cruz are on the same page, that tells you that something's wrong here, because all of a sudden these hedge funds guys said, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't fair," and I find that the height of hypocrisy, because aren't these the guys who defend making money doing nothing but shoveling papers around? They don't really actually make anything. They don't create anything. They just shovel papers around. And this is all part of capitalism. This is all part of freedom, until they lose. Now, all of a sudden, no, we can't do this. This needs regulated. All right. So what happened then is that, and this is kind of what I'm a little, Robin Hood and the actors behind it. Apparently there's a hedge fund behind Robin Hood. They froze everything when they realized that this was spiraling out of control. When this whole thing started going into a death spiral, like what they refer to in aviation, you're going into a spin that is unrecoverable. Okay, they said no, we got to stop everything. And that's where AOC and Ted Cruz and just about everybody from across the board said this is the height of hypocrisy. Okay, this is supposedly how the system is supposed to work. These hedge funds have made millions and billions of dollars doing it for years. And now a bunch of little guys got together and did exactly the same thing collectively. And it's the end of the world. And I got to say,
people were making money.
Yes. And from what I understand, there's nothing illegal about this. I checked a couple of sources, and the only thing that would make this illegal is if the people on Reddit or any group were acting on insider trader information. If a bunch of people just communicate and decide they are going to, quote unquote, bet on a stock, there's nothing that's illegal about that. So I'll let you take it.
I was going to say, there's one marginally illegal thing that still has to be kind of proven, is the fact that they short sold over the number of stocks that actually exist by a very wide margin.
Yeah, that's true too. Mm-hmm.
So that's possibly going to be something that's illegal, but I mean, who knows if they'll actually do anything about it. One thing too is that Robinhood, which is owned by one of the hedge funds, I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. I think it starts with an M. What they did,
I believe it's Melvin Capital. I could be wrong.
I think it's Melvin Capital. I'm pretty
sure. Just a little disclaimer, that could be wrong, but there is a hedge fund behind Robinhood. Okay, go ahead.
Well, first of all, the last figure I saw as to how much these hedge funds lost was something like $70 to $80 billion, which is a lot of money. And the way, well, where Robinhood kind of made it worse was, I mean, it's not illegal to do what these people are doing. And what they did was they locked out the app. I believe it was on Friday morning. It was either
Mhm.
Thursday or Friday morning. I can't remember. I've been out of town. To where the only option you had was to sell. You couldn't buy anymore. You could only sell like those two stocks. It was AMC and it was and GameStop.
Okay.
And some users, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've seen enough stories about it pop up, claim that Robinhood was starting to sell their stocks for them,
Oh, okay.
which could also be illegal because you could look at that as theft. So anyway, ever since Robinhood made that mistake of kind of turning out to be hypocrites, which we all knew they were, their user base has just dropped. It's
Yeah.
way down. People have been uninstalling it everywhere. I know my one coworker who's big into stocks. I think he's using something else now too. After using that forever, I mean, it's been ridiculous.
Yeah. And I'm not sure I agree with this, but there's been a lot of things online where people are encouraging people to, get the Robinhood app, do a few minor things with it just to make sure that it registers as active, and then give it a 1-star rating.
Okay.
I'm not much for deliberately sabotaging something like I don't believe that's a good thing. But playing by the rules, from what I can understand, playing by the same rules that the big guys do, that
Yep.
the hedge fund guys do, is nothing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
See, that's really the best part about it too. I mean, I haven't really been paying attention to the news for the past couple days because I've been hanging out with friends. But
Sure.
one of my favorite things was, it was like Thursday. There was a guy, some billionaire on CNBC, who was like crying because this company lost all this money, and it's like, hey man, guess what happens to us when pandemics happen and you don't back us up? We lose
Yeah.
everything too. Now you're getting a little taste of it. Um, and
I
the
did.
other
Go,
ironic part about it too is all these like congressmen and senators who are all about like, oh well, we're banding together to make sure this never happens again. A lot of those people sold a lot of stocks right before the pandemic
oh
happened.
yeah.
They knew something was going to happen,
Yeah.
and they're all trying to go about trying to be the good guy, being high and mighty, and they're no better than the ones who are short selling and trying to ruin a company in the first place, in my opinion.
I did vet that video of the guy crying, and to be honest, it was taken out of context. A
Was
lot of
it?
people are making it seem one way and it isn't. He was actually referring to the political division in our country and how those wars are going into places that they shouldn't be, and the stock market being one of them. And this was actually the clip that I saw, that I actually found on MSNBC, was before the inauguration. This was like several weeks back.
Mm-hmm.
So here again, you just, when it comes to the internet, you really have to be careful. I did hear someone, and I believe it was the same. I could be wrong. Maybe the same person who made the comment that it was something to the effect of everybody, unquote, quote unquote, they're getting their fair share in the context of socialism. And he made the inference that people are taking their stimulus checks and buying shares on this. No, that one is a little bit more true by my vetting, that he actually believed that.
Man,
Now,
I wish I would have known this was going on. I would have done that the second that $600 hit my bank
oh,
account.
oh
Instead, I'm
yeah,
going around like tossing money at like waitresses and stuff because I don't really need it, and
yeah,
buying stupid crap. But
yeah. A lot of a lot of my friends were saying, "I wish I'd have known that this GameStop thing. I wish I'd have known about it." But there's a couple of caveats to this that I would like to point out to the audience, and that is, despite all of this hocus pocus, GameStop is still in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And another reason why we're doing this show on Sunday night is here again, Monday. There's a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with the stock market in general due to this. And there's some fear, and I could be wrong about characterizing it this way, but a lot of economists feel that in regard to the stock market, there's been a bit of a bubble going on to begin with, and this could be a catalyst
Hmm.
to something really bad happening sometime soon, whether it's in the next few weeks or a month or so. I don't know. Apparently, bullion for gold and silver is very hard to get, which is an indicator here again that people are trying to buy solid investment items, and this could be a precursor to the fact that a lot of people are getting nervous.
To be fair, I think it's been that way for a little while now,
Has
for at
it?
least a couple of years. Yeah,
Okay.
that's not like a totally recent thing with the GameStop thing. That's been a trend for a while. I think a
Okay.
lot of people are anticipating some bubble to pop. I'm saying either stock market, student loans, or housing.
Yeah.
Because the problem with the housing market right now too is that property rates are skyrocketing so much that people can't afford to live in them, and then they lose money, and that's how it crashes. That's what happened in 2008.
Yeah.
So we're repeating mistakes. I do think that short selling should be illegal. I really do, because it's such a gray area, because you're essentially selling stuff that you don't own. That would
Yeah.
be like me saying, "Hey Billy, can I borrow your car for a minute?" And then going and letting some hobo drive it around and then returning it back to you with like some dents in the fender and being like, "Oh, hey, I filled the gas tank a little bit." you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not, from what I understand, a lot of the people who do the stock market say that overall this is a good thing. Okay. And here again, in regard to price discovery, that it's a good way to shake down some of these stocks to find out how solid they really are. And in the long run, they do good.
Right.
How true that is, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And the other thing too is, as far as making predictions, there's a lot of talking heads on the on the internet and whatnot, talking about that this is. I personally cannot tell if this is going to be a game changer. Pardon the pun. That this is going to completely. This is going to cause a new trend. I don't know if it, or if this is a big nothing, and a week from now it's just going to be gone. I don't know. I do believe that the social media aspect of this, the way a bunch of little people, and I say little people, were able to gather their forces and make this big of a shakeup, that won't be quickly forgotten in the halls of Wall Street.
Oh,
Okay.
they're going to do everything they can to prevent something like that from happening again. As I said, the wrong people made too much money, and they're not happy about that.
Yeah. So I don't know if this is a big nothing or if this is a game changer. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting. What happens in the next couple of weeks in regard to the stock market is going to be interesting. I'll ask you one more thing here as we're closing down on about 30 minutes of our podcast here. If you've never checked out our program before, our podcast run generally about 30 minutes, give or take. We're coming up on the 30-minute mark now. Let me ask you one more thing. Elon Musk, who I happen to really like. Okay, I like people that actually do stuff.
Right.
Okay, they didn't inherit a bunch of money and they manipulated real estate, or this guy is actually changing the world, much like Henry Ford. Okay, even Steve Jobs. I would have to say that Elon Musk is even in a category separate from that, because what Steven Jobs did was he made geeky stuff. He made computers cool. Okay, it was more of a branding. It was more of a marketing thing. He gave them a cool, hip personality. Okay, and that had not been done before. You had these monoliths like IBM that nobody even knew what that stood for. Okay, it didn't have a face. It didn't have a personality. It was something that I used at work, and he changed the game up there. But Elon Musk, in terms of what he's doing with electric car technology, what he's doing with SpaceX, he's a renegade in a lot of ways. He goes against the grain. Tesla, for example, does not advertise. He's it. He caused quite a bit of a stir because he was tweeting about this. And a couple days ago, I'm not sure what day it was, he put the word Bitcoin in his bio on Twitter.
I wish you wouldn't have done that.
Okay, that was kind of weird because I have followed Bitcoin to some degree, not passionately, but there's times when I've been hot and cold on it. This is really great, and there's another times I don't know about this. And I believe I can't interpret Elon Musk, but being that he's a bit of a renegade, maybe that was kind of a vague signal that there has to be a better system. From what I understand, he's He's not big on the stock market overall, and I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on Elon Musk either, but being a renegade, he's kind of throwing something out there that there has to be a better system.
He's always been a bit more of a futurist too. I think that was more
Yes.
of a nod toward the fact that cryptocurrencies are going to be default currencies within at least the next 20 to 50 years.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, as you know, markets have been getting more and more coalesced, worldwide, we're going to need a unifying currency, and the US dollar is not going to keep its value for that long, since it's not really based on much now, whereas cryptocurrency is at least based on like some kind of supply and demand.
Yeah.
But I wish he wouldn't have brought so much focus on that, though, because you've already got like financial types and people in the media who already hate Bitcoin for various reasons, who want to get rid of it, make it illegal or whatever, when really I think we should be developing more into it and seeing what other implications we could use for it. Bitcoin gets the bad rap of being the currency of online drug dealers and pimps and all that. Whereas, I mean, we've been handing 20s to drug dealers for years on the street. I don't really see how internet's any different with untraceable money, but that's a thing for another time. I kind of generally agree with him on most things. But yeah, he's definitely looking toward the future on that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he started trying to be more vocal about it, because a lot of the more renegade business types, as you said, have been pushing it lately.
Yeah.
Especially since there's so many different ones now too. Like, Bitcoin's not just the regular Bitcoin. There's tons of other cryptocurrencies out there.
Yeah.
So you could even make your own if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy Coin.
Billy Coin. Now that's a good one. Well, it's going to be. Like I said, in all honesty, toward the audience, from my point of view, I can speak for the show. Generally speaking, there's a lot of speculation you heard here tonight, and that's part of the fun of this. It's fun to talk about something that really has never happened before,
This
and
has been hilarious to watch. I've been loving
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I never really believed that there was going to be a day when I would be giving 2 thumbs up to Ted Cruz and AOC.
It's funny. Did you see how she responded to him on Twitter about that?
No, I didn't. Go ahead.
She was like, well, I appreciate the sentiment, but you kind of had me killed, so you need to go resign, or tried to have me killed, so you need to go resign. I think Ted Cruz realizes he's in kind of a lot of trouble right now, just trying to weasel his way out of it by like playing ball. But
yeah. Well, a lot of conservatives have said, and to my amazement and my joy, that this is the same roles that you've been playing by, and it's time to suck it up and take your losses, just like you took all your winnings for all these years.
Oh yeah,
and
especially in a country right now where so many people are facing evictions and homelessness. And being underpaid, not being able to make a living wage and all that. And then you have these billionaires who sit back in their offices just waving their money around in your face. I mean, of course, it's going to anger a lot of people, and things like this will happen. And I'm kind of wondering if this is going to happen again soon, now that the experiment has been run and it's been shown that it's possible to do. It'll be interesting to keep an eye out for it now.
Yes, and if anything, this is going to keep the short selling in check, because you're not going to be telegraphing your moves.
Well, one thing about short selling, though, too, is that if you do it, it's public.
Exactly. Sure.
So, I mean, you can't hide it if you're doing it.
Sure.
So
you better do it fast.
Smart. Yeah. Either they're gonna have to get real smart about employing it strategically, or they're gonna have to find another way to tinker around with the world's biggest unchecked casino. I think that also was another thing too that kind of got brought to the forefront as well, was just kind of how rigged the stock market is kind of in general towards people who already have all the money and have everything.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's another reason it's caught so much fire. I mean, you got these people who are like, well, I could never afford to invest in stocks. That sounds, and then you got all these people just put maybe 10 or 20 or $30 down, up to like say 10 grand, and we're able to turn the tide on another. It's like watching people play D&D and like roll a critical 20 against a monster and just like completely obliterate them.
Exactly.
I'm sure there will be a movie made about this at some point in the next year too. I'm willing to bet money on that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go. Have you ever The Wolf of Wall Street? I've been meaning to check that out, and I never have, but I've been told that it's really good.
I have seen it. It's good.
Is it okay? It's watchable.
I thought it was a bit too long. Because
Okay.
that movie's something like 2.5 hours long. I felt they could have cut about
Yeah.
a third of it.
2 hours is my limit too. Yeah.
Yeah, about an hour is my limit with literally anything. So I might be a
All right.
bad person to ask about that, but yeah, it's a good movie. A lot of what it portrays is kind of inaccurate as movies are. So, there are people out there act like it's an autobiography or anything. It's really not, but
Yeah.
it's fun to watch.
Well, we're going to be checking this out over the weeks, days to come, possibly months. It's going to be interesting. Robin Hood, they're in a position now where their back is against the wall. They got an image problem. There's going to be a lot of things happening on Reddit now. Everybody's going to be flocking to this, and that's one thing I'd be a little leery of, just because some people have seemingly made out well through this whole ordeal does not mean that this is a sure thing. This is something that you have to go into with the notion that even though it's structured, even though it has rules, there's no guaranteed outcome. It's very similar to gambling, although your odds are better, especially if you do your homework.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have modest means, I would be very careful how you act upon this news, that this is a new way to get rich and this is a new great gravy train. I would be very careful about interpreting that.
Well, one other interesting phenomenon that kind of came to head too was a lot of people were just holding the stocks out of spite, so that the
Yeah.
hedge funds couldn't buy them back. And so not everybody was in it for the money. There are people out there just like, I just want to stick it to them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you have that element. Yeah, you have that element that this is
which I think is something that the main investors were not really foreseeing either, because it's like,
sure.
who wouldn't want to make tons of money like right now?
Yep.
Like it's just we have an angry population right now that needs to find ways to outlet its anger, and well, it turns out sticking it to hedge funds was one of them this time.
Yes. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of moving parts here, starting with Robinhood, the app, Reddit, the social media platform, which is basically a social way to manage news, trending topics, discussion. And I'm probably going to check out Reddit a little more, just so that I understand it. You have AMC stock, you have GameStop stock at play here. So and of course the stock market and what short selling is. There's a lot of bits and pieces here. And people that normally don't know a lot about one versus the other. They're doing their homework here. So it's going to be interesting. Jack, as always, I always appreciate you co-hosting a show. Appreciate you being here. To our audience, like I said, this is our first time live on LinkedIn, but we were also live on YouTube, also live on Facebook, the Billy Dees Podcast. You can find the Billy Dees Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much all the major ones. Alexa, absolutely. Go ahead and stream us, the Billy Dees Podcast. And thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. Thanks for hanging out with me, Jack. Really appreciate
you. Everybody. The trickle down only really takes effect if you make the giant bleed first.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely. Great point. And a lot of people acted upon that this last week. Let's see what happens this week. I'm Billy Dees. Thank you very much for checking out the program.